Story 1: Childcare. The early years are very important for child development. The pay is low. It is hard work that can be physically demanding. The environment is noisy and messy. Bodily fluids are part of the job. We are exposed to many illnesses. It is rewarding, but the pay remains low. It is sad to see ineffective parenting and how it may affect the children. We become attached to the children, and then they go off to school and we rarely see them again. Story 2: Asphalt laborer shoveling 300-degree hot asphalt all day while walking next to the hot fresh mat with the temperature at 100 degrees outside. Story 3: Social workers require a master's degree. The starting salary ranges from $30,000 to $50,000 per year. The position requires passing 2 tests and completing 4,000 internship hours. Story 4: Most professions that were labeled essential workers during coronavirus disease 2019 and from a government perspective had to report to work. Story 5: I got third-degree burns to my crotch and legs when I worked at a fast food place. I was only paid $8.75 an hour and was expected to come in even when I was in the burn care unit. I was disciplined when I did not show up. The fast food kitchen is a great example of poor working conditions. I never received my unemployment benefits either. My boss made sure of that. James, if you are reading this, I hate you. Story 6: United States Postal Service letter carrier. We are basically Amazon now. Amazon dumps whatever they deem as not profitable on the United States Postal Service. For example, heavy packages, apartments, and rural packages. The United States Postal Service is a self-funded quasi-federal agency. It is the worst of 3 federal agencies I have worked for. In 2013, the United States Postal Service created a new pay table that started carriers $11 or more less per hour and introduced a new step, AA, so it would take longer to get to step A and so on. You never know when you will be off because you have to stay until the mail is done. That meant 13 hours in 90-degree heat the other day. The postal jeeps do not have air conditioning. I like the job of delivering the mail, but it is not just grab mail and go. You have to case and pull down your route, scan and load the truck, and then grab the mail. By this time, you are 1.5 to 3 hours deep before you even leave the station. So many letter carriers have second jobs. It is very sad. Story 7: Retail, especially grocery stores, involves dealing with rude people frequently. If you are opening, you get up before sunrise, and if you are closing, you stay late. You run around sweating, pulling items on pallets that realistically weigh more than you do. Your sleep schedule is an absolute mess and never consistent because you work on a roster. The pay is minimum wage, yet you are often expected to go above and beyond. Story 8: Probably not the most stressful job, but being an Amazon delivery driver is surprisingly stressful and physically demanding for how little it pays. Story 9: Commercial truck driver. While over-the-road drivers can make low 6 figures, they are generally away from home a minimum of 21 days at a time, with 36 to 48 hours downtime before starting again. They miss holidays, birthdays, and family gatherings. In the end, if you calculate the weekly hourly wage for a driver earning $100,000 over 49 weeks, deducting for time off, then dividing by a 168-hour workweek, 7 days times 24 hours, you end up with a gross of $20.49 or $12.20 an hour. The job also shortens life expectancy by 6 years and leads to chronic illness. Story 10: Certified nursing assistants. Certified nursing assistants provide essential care by assisting with personal hygiene tasks, such as cleaning and repositioning patients in bed. They often receive minimum wage. Story 11: Being in the military, I am a veteran now and I never joined for the money. However, when you actually do the math and find out how much you are making versus all the monumental difficulties you endure that nobody outside of the military does, it frustrates you. I was making below minimum wage even after more than 3 years in. Story 12: Go to a fast food place like Dairy Queen when it is busy. In my experience, the employees work very hard. Story 13: Public school teacher. Society is entrusting you all with building the next generation, but we cannot be bothered to pay a decent teacher wage. Story 14: Ski patrollers are underpaid for the work they do. My friend quit after having a person die screaming in his arms. spraying blood all over him, and realizing he was getting paid $11 an hour for that trauma. He still has nightmares about it. Story 15. I am a social worker. I work primarily with homeless and recently paroled men who have addiction, gang affiliation, and mental health issues. I am paid very poorly, and my job is challenging. Story 16. 38 years of nursing. More physically demanding and mentally stressful than I could ever describe. However, what I have learned is that no matter the type of work, working is hard. A big salute to all workers of every kind who work so hard. Story 17. Teacher aides and learning support staff, especially those who support children with severe disabilities, are essential. I am a high school teacher. I earn a good amount of money and am happy with it. However, our support staff are paid minimum wage. Some of our students have disabilities such as cerebral palsy. They require feeding tubes and diaper changes. These students are not small children. They have adult-sized bodies. Story 18. I worked in a state prison for 6 years back in the 1990s because it was a state job with decent benefits. We made about $1 more than minimum wage, and the difficulties you have to deal with and witness are definitely not worth it. 30 years later, the pay is still pretty low. $40,000 a year is not worth the post-traumatic stress disorder. Story 19. Being a resident doctor in the intensive care unit, you earn minimum wage or less. You constantly deal with patients who are critically ill, face incredibly high standards, the threat of malpractice lawsuits, and supervisors reprimanding you throughout the day. They show no mercy and can be very harsh. Patients sometimes die through no fault of your own. You witness families crying and wailing. These shifts typically last 13 to 14 hours a day for 6 days a week, sometimes even 24 hours at a time. It is extremely challenging. I do not understand why someone would choose this as a career. It is chaos. Story 20. Working at a moving company, you get paid poorly and carry furniture and boxes all day, sometimes up multiple flights of stairs. Everyone knows how difficult moving is, and you do it every day. Story 21. When I worked in a service deli in a grocery store in my early 20s, there was always so much to be done and much to put away and clean up at the end of the day. The pay was only a little over minimum wage at the time. You can get a job where all you do is stand around and get paid the same. So that is what I did. Story 22. Restaurants, from dishwasher to general manager. Unless you own the establishment, you are rarely making progress towards something more. Story 23. Medical residency. My sister is a pediatrics resident. That is very challenging for what is essentially minimum wage. Story 24. Daycare worker. Many daycare centers are hiring anyone they can at this point. The surprising thing is the cost of daycare is extremely high. Story 25. Line cook. I have never worked so hard for so little. It is hot, sweaty, and you are never going fast enough even when you are moving as quickly as you can. I needed stitches twice because of that job. To top it all off, the waitresses are making 3 to 4 times as much as you are. Do not ever expect to get tipped out though. Story 26. Honestly, I would say anything related to food service or janitorial work. I have worked both in the past and disliked them equally. Janitorial work was very physically demanding and paid very little. Food service was similar but included dealing with customers, often hungry and impatient. I was tired of that while earning between $7.25 to $10 an hour. I would leave days feeling like I wanted to cry because of the intense amount of nonsense I faced every day. With janitorial work, I did the tasks alone, so in a way it was nice to work by myself. I could listen to music while working, but I would come home physically exhausted and collapse onto my couch without the energy to change or get ready for bed. It was just home, dead tired, and done. Now that I no longer do these jobs, I have great respect for those who do. Story 27. Any good manager at a fast food restaurant has been seen hustling hard. I have been to McDonald's on a busy day and observed skilled managers working diligently. Story 28. Retail. Anyone who thinks it is unskilled, entry-level work has never had to argue with a grown person 20 years older about the lack of Progresso soup in the back. or had a driver's license thrown at them when they carded someone well within the carding age parameters, or listened to an elderly man say, "Do you taste as good as that cake looks?" as you literally decorated a child's birthday cake, or had your boss say, "You don't sound great," when you dragged yourself to work with bronchitis, but demanded a doctor's note when you called out the next day. She was used to bullying you into coming in, but you were finally sick enough to say, "I can't," before going back to bed for 6 hours. Or had a megalomaniac boss who fired people for walking around the store without their name tag and apron after their shift. No discount, no perks, nothing, but still spending our paychecks at the place that employed us. Once a man threw a full beer can at my head after I refused to sell him alcohol because he did not have identification. Once a gross creeper told me, "I will take pictures of you and you won't even know it." He would walk into my job when I was alone and refuse to leave because he was just admiring me. Once a man gave me his inappropriate website address after we spent 10 minutes talking about Halloween and the best candy. Retail is difficult. Women know. These are all true stories. I made between $5 an hour, I once got a 10-cent raise and was told not to tell anyone, and $12.50 an hour. I left retail in 2011 and have never missed it. Story 29. Caregiver, personal support worker, to a violent special needs person with medical issues. It is very challenging. Might as well include special education teachers. If regular teachers receive poor pay for teaching difficult students, then Story 30. Fast food. You would be astonished at what some people do just because their hamburger is not served within 10 seconds. Story 31. All nursing homes. The work is grueling on the body and spirit. Oftentimes, workers make minimum wage and are forced to stay for shifts longer than 24 hours, especially during snowstorms. Story 32. I worked at a gated community security check-in for 11 years as the supervisor the entire time. When we started, I made $2 over the $8 minimum wage. Over the years, I was promoted a few times, trained around 90 employees due to high turnover, and by the time I left, I was still only making $1.30 over minimum wage. New hires doing overnight security work, walking around with a flashlight and trying not to fall asleep in an empty construction yard, were making $3 over minimum wage. The community, between vendors, deliveries, guests, and real estate looky-loose, saw around 600 check-ins on the day shift, 450 on the evening shift, and around 200 overnight, most after 5 a.m. This did not cover the roughly 100 phone calls we received daily to add guests. Even though the system was fully automated and easy for the 2,500 residents to use from their phones. Notice I did not mention residents. Like most gated communities, this one had a resident-only lane with their own barcodes that scanned as they passed through. But if that scanner ever went down, usually 4 or 5 times a week during winter and once or twice in summer due to brutal Northern California weather, over 110 degrees from July to September, we had to deal with it. We would get an extra guard whose job was to stand outside and visually inspect barcodes for residents. No fun in the rain, snow, or that 110-degree plus summer heat. There were annual community events like the twice-yearly yard sale, which was not open to the public. You had to be on a guest list, but that did not stop a half-dozen elderly residents from pulling ads in the newspaper, Craigslist, and Facebook claiming it was open to everyone. Did I mention report writing? Usually, guards submit basic reports. Like, at 3:15 I chased a transient trespassing the last several nights off the property. Law enforcement called. But here it was different. For example, a drunk, pregnant woman parked her car, blocked both entry lanes at 8:15 in the morning, and threatened to have us all arrested, claiming she was a sheriff's deputy. She actually worked, or rather worked in the past, as a secretary for the sheriff's office. After we submitted our reports, 2 of us, myself and my assistant, were called into the county jail to talk with higher-ups who were embarrassed by her behavior and asked what they could do to make it right. We even got to tour the jail. That was not the only story. We wrote dozens of reports each week, submitting transcripts and video evidence. More than a few times we were called into court to testify. High-speed chases ended at our gate. Some vehicles even blasted through it. There was even a murder in the community, A resident lured his unsuspecting ex into the community for a custody exchange and then shot her and her father from his truck. It was horrible, with many agencies coming and going, coordinating protocols with the board of directors, and then the rumor mill began. Apparently, some people thought it made more sense that we let the gunman into the community than that he was a resident who invited her in. There was a community meeting where many angry residents, fueled by misinformation, tried to get our contract terminated. So, what do you think? Have I made my case for a job that did not pay nearly enough? Story 33. Nursing assistants work very hard taking care of people all day and are severely underpaid for the work they do. Story 34. A nurse, because when your elderly parents are constipated, a young lady with a glove will insert her finger to relieve the constipation. Story 35. I keep seeing construction, warehouse and heating, ventilation, and air conditioning workers bragging about working over 120 hours per week, and their pay averages out to $16 per hour. Story 36. I think the worst work-to-pay ratio would be for a slaughterhouse worker, but the most soul-crushing stress-to-pay job would be a police officer. Not knowing if today is your last, seeing terrible things on a nearly daily basis, getting verbally abused daily, marriage suffers, higher chance of becoming an alcoholic, and much higher odds of suicide. Story 37. Cooks and chefs. The precision, timing, execution, and commitment required in even a basic kitchen are not proportional to the pay you receive. Often, the higher you move up the career ladder, the worse the pay becomes. All for the passion. Story 38. Veterinarians have the same cost of education as medical doctors, but they may earn only half as much. Veterinary school for my wife costs $250,000 just for tuition. Story 39. Something with actual manual labor. Go dig a ditch for 8 hours, then complain about some office job where it is shown people work 2.5 to 4 hours. Story 40. Any retail assistant manager. Salaried position with too many required tasks and not enough hours. Falls on you to get it done. 14-hour days. Story 41. Any type of service industry, in my opinion. I work in golf and I started off at the cashier and outside service positions. I am now an assistant golf professional at a nice public course, but the general public is just as rude to me now as they were when I was an hourly employee. I do not know what is going on with people, but it has gotten so bad. They are rude, expect us to say yes to any request, want us to stay past closing, and we have to chase them down on the course in the dark. They also do not listen to standard rules. I have been working full-time in the industry for less than 4 years, and I am already considering a career change. I can only imagine what it is like in restaurants and retail stores. Story 42. There is an entire group of people who want to lower their income and believe they do not deserve to earn more than the subminimum wage. Story 43. I'm only speaking from personal experience, but teaching and call center work are both extremely demanding and have poor pay. Story 44. Food service. Servers can make $2.13 an hour and potentially no tips while running a full dining room. It is thankless and easily the lowest paying job. Story 45. Fast food, especially in recent years, has changed. They found out they could get away with skeleton crews during the COVID-19 pandemic and continued with it. On any given day, I would take drive-through orders, prepare drinks, prepare ice cream and milkshakes, and switch off with the grill worker to hand out orders. I was literally doing the jobs of 3 to 4 people making $10 an hour. There was no winning with customers because either it took too long to take their order or too long to hand out their order, and I would get yelled at either way. Never again. Story 46. I'm sure there are many, but ask a child care professional how much they make. They are terribly underpaid, and when it is done well, it is a lot of work. Story 47. Any early elementary teaching job involves parents, state reporting requirements, and paying out of pocket to outfit the classroom. Story 48. Supermarket, especially the beverage department. I worked there for 4 weeks this summer and earned about 9 to 10 euros per hour after taxes, but considering the work I did, it should have been double that amount. Story 49. Emergency medical services. An average emergency medical technician in the United States makes a median pay of $41,340 to save lives. Add to that the physical strain of lifting a 300-pound patient with just one or two people, difficult calls, the trauma of losing patients and pediatric calls, and you get a pretty tough job. There is also a problem with finding people willing to do emergency medical services now, resulting in fewer ambulances on the road and impaired response times. A close second is firefighters. 60% of firefighters are volunteers and are not paid for running into burning buildings to try to save people. Story 50. That I have done? Roofing, especially as an hourly worker, not a contractor. I think I made about $10 an hour carrying 60-pound packs of shingles up rickety ladders in over 100 degrees Fahrenheit heat. Story 51. Special needs teaching assistants face physical violence daily, including being punched, kicked, and spat on. All for minimum wage here in the United Kingdom. Story 52. Emergency medical technicians stabilize and save people's lives all day, throwing themselves into dangerous situations for $15 per hour. Story 53. Teaching is especially a challenging area. You don't get many opportunities to inspire and teach, and most likely the room is overcrowded. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.